So good afternoon, everyone. Just like to start by introducing myself. I'm Jo Whitworth. I'm Comms and Media Manager for the Association for Cultural Enterprises. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon to start thinking about getting ready for Museum Shop Sunday, which this year is on Sunday, the 29th of November. This is the fourth year that Museum Shop Sunday has taken place. And in those 4 years, it's become a truly international event. Last year, over 1,400 shops put on events and promotions in 22 countries, which was absolutely amazing. And over 240 of those museum shops were here in the UK. This year, of course, as we all know, it's more important than ever to get people supporting our cultural shops in museums, galleries, and all kinds of cultural attractions. Many of our shops are sadly going to be closed on the 29th of November this year, but we can still work together to get a really powerful campaign going online to raise awareness and support for our cultural shops. And that is the purpose of this webinar today. So I'd like to introduce you to Tara. Tara is a digital marketing consultant who we've been working with this year on Museum Shop Sunday. And Tara is going to talk us through how you can create an engaging and impactful social media campaign. I know that she's got lots of great tips and practical advice for you. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Please can you use the Q&A panel to post your questions. If you write them there, we'll all be able to see them. We'll take questions either at the appropriate moment as we go along or at the very end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tara. Thanks, Tara.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm excited for Museum Shop Sunday this year. So this is just a presentation, a webinar, I guess, to walk you through some key parts of the strategy and how you can get the most out of them, as the slide says. So before we begin, just a little bit of an introduction about me and who I am. So I'm Tara Parasha. I'm an ethical digital marketing consultant. These days I go by Tara Maitri. Maitri is a Buddhist word meaning compassion. So I structure all of my work around compassionate outcomes for online audiences. We know that social media can be kind of bad for us, but it can also do kind of great things like Museum Shop Sunday. So those are the kind of problems that I work on. Previous projects I've done, I used to be the social media content editor at the National Theatre. I was there for a couple of years. I did loads of different massive projects at BBC News when I worked in marketing there. And I also did the BBC Master Brand account launch. So I know my stuff, basically. So just quickly, what we're going to cover today is I'm going to take you through 4 ways that can help you get the most out of Museum Shop Sunday. It is helpful if you've read the strategy before the webinar, but totally fine if you haven't. We'll go through a couple of the key things about it. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So the 4 ways to get the most out of Museum Shop Sunday are: post really high value content, and I will teach you how to do these things, engage with your audience, and then use our hashtag on the day. That's kind of a big one. And then keep the momentum going afterwards as well. But the one that we're going to talk about the most today is this posting high value content part of it, because I think it's the most complicated part, and it's often the part that I get asked to give the most training on. So we're going to go over that in some great detail. So Museum Shop Sunday, it's on Sunday, the 29th of November, 2020. And this year it's really, really important. I won't go over this in loads of detail for you because you all know the reality of this better than me, but suddenly we all need to be digital businesses, and you might be experiencing reduced visitor numbers, an uncertain future. They need to make up for revenue lost in other areas. So Museum Shop Sunday is a day when you can help establish yourself as a digital business or kind of push further in that direction if you want to. This is a really quick outline of the overall strategy. So firstly, we're going to create strategically minded mission-led content. We're going to publish regularly in the lead up to the event. Then everybody posts all their amazing content about the amazing things that they do on Museum Shop Sunday using our hashtags. And then after the day, you continue to provide value using our sustaining culture hashtag or using your other branded hashtags. And after that, you gain insight on what worked and what didn't, and then you can integrate that into your future content. So again, here are those 4 ways to get the most out of Museum Shop Sunday. Publish high value content in the lead up to the day. Interact with your audience more in the lead up to the day. This is really important because you want to be really visible on Museum Shop Sunday, right? That's why we all come together to create this moment, to use this hashtag, and to create a conversation that everyone can see. in order to make your content rank higher in the algorithm, and again, I will go over this later, but in order to make your content rank higher in the algorithm, you have to be engaging a lot and creating engagement around it. And if you do that in the days leading up to Museum Shop Sunday, it's more likely that your content on the day will be more successful. So use our hashtag, as I've mentioned before, and then keeping the conversation going. So you'll have built an audience, hopefully, over this time. What do you do with them after that? Because continuing to serve that audience will lead into the wider aims of your institution. So number one, publishing high value content in the lead up to the day. How do we do that? Oh my God, we've not got that many days left, or do we? So the first thing to do here is just breathe. Like, take a moment, take a minute. It's just the internet. Everything's fine. The major problem that I find with a lot of my clients is that they don't take enough time to think about what they're going to post before they post. And it's because, especially when you're working in an environment where you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of resources, but you have to be on the internet, or you feel that you do, we can get kind of wrapped up in like posting panic or panic posting. So panic posting is the number one mistake that brands make on social media. And it's that need to publish something, which I've definitely felt before, and I'm sure a lot of you have. And often that something that you post isn't necessarily in line with your mission and your values. So it means that you're not telling a coherent message to your audience, which makes you very hard to engage with. It's always better to plan more and to make high value content than it is to post because you need to get something out. If there's one message you take away from this whole webinar, I would be totally happy if it were this. You always have time to breathe and take a minute. So just quickly to go over that, I often have these kind of like mental crises when I'm creating content, and I just think, oh God, I'm no longer young. I can't be good at social media. Well, that's not true. So things that make you good at social media are understanding your audience, having a really solid strategy, posting consistently, speaking to your audience, and creating a good value exchange. The things that don't necessarily make you good at social media, and these don't make you good at social media because they either have nothing to do with creating great content, like being a millennial or being in Generation Z, or being an early adopter of a platform. These things often take you further away from the one message you're trying to send, which is your mission. So, but also I find that these things can create like mental blocks in us, right? That can impede us from making great content. So you don't have to be like super young and super with it to be really good at social media. So I like looking at this slide sometimes because it makes me feel great, but also it really reminds you that you have to come back to the fundamentals of why you're on there in the first place. So another key thing to keep in mind as we continue through the webinar is that social media isn't a broadcast platform. It's not for you to just like post stuff. It's a space for you to have conversations with your audience. So using videos, comments, stories, whatever goes into your mix to your strategy. Like all good conversations, we need to start by thinking about who we're talking to. So I have outlined some target audiences for Museum Shop Sunday. And these are the people who I think are most likely to engage with the message, the story that we're telling, that museum shops are a great place to buy products and support the institutions that you love. So target audiences, here we go. So firstly, you've got your existing institution customers. So these are customers who might have bought a product or visited the institution already. They've got a confirmed interest in you. You kind of know that they like what you do. And they're likely to be most interested in content that shows how spending money in museum shops supports institutions, right? Because that's one big reason why, I guess, why we're all here today and why we all want to do Museum Shop Sunday. You've then got your common interest customers. So they might live locally, they're kind of interested in the core subject of your institution, and they're looking for content that's going to enrich their interest in that. So they're likely to be most interested in products relating to their niche interests and how shopping at the museum shop keeps that interest alive. So there's a big difference there between your existing institution customers and your common interest customers. Your existing institution customers already know all about you, but your common interest customers, you can sell them on kind of the whole story of you, essentially. So there will be overlapping content between what appeals to the existing institution customers and the common interest customers. You then have your cold approach customers. So this is the hardest audience to reach, and they're interested more in kind of shopping and buying unique items than anything else. They're looking for content that provides a solution to their shopping needs. So that's like totally different from the other two. And they're likely to be most interested in content that shows the variety of unique products that you've got on offer in your museum shop. If you don't have a shop that's like an online platform shop, you could still talk about the products in your shop or whatever it is that you're selling, be that kind of memberships, gift cards, that kind of thing, to this audience, because they're still kind of looking to buy something. And within all of this, it's key to remember that we're trying to satisfy needs here for other people. That's the thing that makes social media really successful, is that you're trying to help someone, essentially. That's what it all comes down to. So next up, step 2, we're going to go back to our mission, and I hope you have a pen and pencil ready, because I have created an activity worksheet, which I know working in the cultural enterprises, I feel like you'll all love, right? I hope. Anyway, so going back to your mission, Museum Shop Sunday is like, it's one day in the whole year. So you have to use it as part of an overall strategy to fulfill your mission, the reason that you exist as an institution. For us, that's probably, we need to drive revenue in order to make up for lost footfall, lost sales that we have in other places. It could just be that you're creating a whole new digital strategy, and that you're going to fulfill your institution mission of educating people about the thing that your institution is about using social media. But it's important to remember that, and all of this strategy as well is grounded in the idea that it is just one day, and we're using this one day to achieve a lot of things and to lead into actions that can be taken in the future. So Museum Shop Sunday, it's one part of an overall strategy to fulfill your mission. Good. Everything you post should be led by your mission. So this comes back to that panic posting thing and how to avoid panic posting. If you post in line with your mission and you're really clear on what you want to achieve in social media, you will spend your time and budget on content that works. You're going to keep your message focused and consistent. It's going to help you plan and schedule your content in a more meaningful way. It will prevent you from panic posting, and it's going to improve the likelihood that you will get the results that you want. Essentially, I like to think of posting and social media content and social media management without a strategy is like trying to get from A to B without a map. You will probably get there if you walk in generally the right direction, but you won't get there like when you need to get there in an efficient way or while seeing interesting sights on the way. So keep your mission in mind when you're planning and you're on the way to creating your content. And here's a breakdown basically of how Museum Shop Sunday can help you fulfill your mission. So you've got increased visibility for your content because we're all going to be using the same hashtag on the same day. You've got a great potential to grow your audience because we're going to create this kind of like plan of content leading up to Museum Shop Sunday, and then we'll have the day as well to gain more followers. As I said before, you can set yourself up as more of a digital business if that's what you want to do. If you want to push more into that space, Museum Shop Sunday, with all of the hype and noise that's around it, is a really good time to make that really clear to your audience. And then if you have an online shop, it's a great day to make sales. If you don't have an online shop, it's a great day to draw attention to the fact that you have a shop that can be visited when the museum reopens. So this is another question I talk to all of my clients about. And it's like, why are you on social media? Like, you don't have to be on it. That sounds like a mad thing for a social media consultant to say, but you really don't. And if you are going to be there, you have to do it really well. So before we get into making all of the content, and this is really important in terms of guiding you on the path to make really good stuff, we're going to just do a quick mission-based find your why type exercise. And this is when you might need your pen and paper. So have a go at completing this sentence. I've got an example that I'll run through you as well. But this sentence is going to be the guiding force behind everything that you make in the lead up to Museum Shop Sunday. So my business is on social media because I want my target audience, who you could describe as, and fill in the blanks, to complete this action. So that could be make purchases in my shop, or it could be sign up to my newsletter, or it could just be follow me on social media. And I think this will enrich their lives because XYZ thing. So I have made a fictional institution that I will run through this exercise with you. And it is the Museum of Failed Art Restorations. So just to give you a brief overview of them and who they are, they're in the West Midlands, which is, okay, slight bias, that's where I'm from. They recently set up an online shop made in Shopify, but it doesn't have a lot of products in it. They've got 5 staff and 3 volunteers. They're attached to a college of art restorers, and they're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but I'm going to say they've got a small community size on each platform, like under 10,000 followers. So when I'm running through the examples, this is the kind of size of institution that we've got in mind. So here's their example. They are on social media because they want their target audience, who you could describe as millennials who enjoy Schadenfreude, to learn how to do art restoration properly. They think that's going to enrich their lives because the content's funny and it feeds their interest in art restoration. So this connects to my institution's mission, because if we learn to protect art, we protect the heritage that can give us a sense of belonging. So I would recommend that you create your version of this, write it on a piece of paper, and keep it on your desk when you're planning your social media content for Museum Shop Sunday. Because as much as we're selling products on the day, we're also selling those products because we want people to support, the institution that you're a part of. That's why we're doing it. And it's really important not to lose sight of that. But also, if you've got this really strong strategic proposition really behind why you're on social media, it's going to make the whole process of coming up with content ideas, planning what to do, planning when you publish it, much, much, much easier. And the other thing is it'll keep you much closer to your values. So as I said before, I'm an ethical social media strategist. And one way of making sure that your content is always enriching the lives of the people you're publishing to, having that social media conversation with, is by having this really clear idea of why you're there and what you're offering. So as I said, we did this exercise because it'll keep your content consistent and it'll keep you focused, but it'll also help you define your value exchange, which is really, really important. So the value exchange is the key to high engagement and follower growth. And if you want to make a success of Museum Shop Sunday, you have to have a good idea of what your value exchange is. So we're not talking here about like posting an image of a couple of products. We're going a level beyond that to find something that's really engaging. So prospective customers, by the time they've seen your post about something, they've already given you their most precious asset. Before they double tap for that like or they hit that purchase button, they've given you their time. It's like the one thing that they're never going to get back. So what are you going to give them in return for it? So your value exchange is the way in which your content and your business enrich the lives of your audience. The more you share value that only you can give on your social media channels, the more likely you are to have a return in terms of engagement, followers, and purchases if you're selling online. So everything you create for Museum Shop Sunday should reflect your value exchange. If that sounds really complicated, we're going to break down how exactly you do that now. And here's just a really quick example of how you can achieve it. So this is an ethical clothes brand called Birdsong. They sell products, but they've taken their content a step beyond selling products. So the value they are demonstrating here is they're introducing you to new creators. They're informing you about their mission and kind of what motivates you to buy the products and what motivates them in existing. And they also give you updates on their newest products. So they didn't have to do that, but they have a really clear idea that their value exchange is that they help people find ethical products and learn about people who make ethical clothes. And that's what they're doing through this Instagram feed. So that's just an example of how you can bring that to life through product posts. So how do you find your value exchange? You have to think first about who your audience is. So like, who are they? Where do they hang out? What might they find it useful or emotionally valuable to know? Like, what can you give your audience that no one else can? So this could be the wealth of knowledge at your institution, or perhaps access to makers that you can't buy anywhere else. What's the best medium for that message? So is it a short video or is it a carousel post with text? And then give it the so what test. Like, ask yourself, so what? Like, if you can't come up with an answer why your post is on the platform, then it's not landing, it's not telling a story, there's no message to it. So that post is kind of like, it doesn't have a strong enough value exchange, essentially. So here, let's bring back the fictional museum. So this is the Museum of Failed Art Restorations. So who is their audience? So their audience is millennials. As we said before, they enjoy humorous content that shows the failed art restorations in the museum. They enjoy instructional content that teaches them more about being an art restorer and how to do it correctly. They can be found mostly on Instagram and YouTube. What can this museum give their audience that no one else can? Well, they're the best place for what they do in the whole country. They sell gifts for budding art restorers and keen art historians that you can't buy anywhere else. And they have the expertise to recommend the products that someone who's interested in that niche interest might need. What's the best medium for that message? Carousel posts on Instagram with a mix of video and stills, probably because they're the best for sales conversions, and YouTube videos kind of detailing how they restore art. And then giving it the so what test. If they didn't provide so much high quality, easy to understand art restoration material, then more great works of art would be lost to amateur restorers. So this is a really clear, quick exercise that I would totally recommend that you do to figure out what your value exchange is, because it's going to add an extra layer of, I guess, uniqueness to everything that you put out in the run up to Museum Shop Sunday and after it, actually. So step 3, we're going to make some content. I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, Tara, that was a lot of thinking before we got to this stage. But what the point that I'm trying to land is that you have to do lots of thinking before you get to this stage, because you're probably otherwise going to spend your budget in the wrong places. You're going to spend your time making things that might not necessarily work. And because before you choose your medium, you have to choose your message and understand what story it is that you're telling online. So let's get into it. These are the ingredients of a great social campaign. We've been through a couple of them already. So you define your mission, you kind of think about your objectives, go on to your success mapping. So that's what does success look like? And then you start planning and making your content, and then you do lots of engagement around it. So we're kind of getting towards the end of this list now. There's a lot more detail on these 2 objectives and how I got that here in the strategy. I would really recommend that you read it, but essentially this is what we're trying to achieve on the day. And as I said before, both of these objectives should fit into your wider mission and the reason that you're on social media. So we're encouraging the public to see supporting cultural shops as local businesses that play a key part in the survival of arts, culture and heritage. So you might connect that back to why your institution exists. So support the shop or support us on Museum Shop Sunday, and you support the reason why we exist. And then financially increasing revenue. Money makes the world go round still. And it's a great day to kind of call attention to the fact that they can support you with their cash, essentially. So we're going to break this message down. So on Museum Shop Sunday, we're going to fulfill our objectives by showing the public that museum shops are the best place to buy interesting, unique items and gifts, support a local business, and keep their local cultural institutions alive. So you have to think about how to convey this messaging through the lens of your value exchange. So I'm just gonna, let me just check what the next slide is. Okay. So content pillars are kind of a way that you can do that. Here are some broad themes that actually could apply to most institutions. So product-wise, it's the best place to buy unique gifts for yourself or for someone else. Community, it's the best place to support local businesses or local makers, or maybe even the staff who work in your shop or in your museum. And mission-wise, it's a great way to support the work that you do. So when you apply your value exchange to that, you can think of the one or two things that you can really offer your audience. So let's go back to the Museum of Failed Art Restoration. They're experts in art restoration, right? So product, that would be, it's the best place to buy art restoration gifts or gifts for people interested in art history. Community, you could introduce your audience to the specialists who work there. And actually by shopping in the Museum for Failed Art Restoration, they support art restorers who do this niche, wonderful job. And then mission, you could say every purchase you make in this shop supports our mission to, I don't know, restore 10 pieces of artwork a day. I'm not sure, but it's breaking it down and viewing it through the specific thing that only you can offer that will make you really successful in terms of your social media campaign. So creating your content, I like to think of social media like a toolbox. Every piece of content is good at generating a certain metric, which in turn is good at driving a specific audience behavior. So we've heard of likes, comments, shares, and all of those things. It's really important, if you want to get the most out of those metrics, to think about what human behavior you're creating by, getting someone to share something. Like, that's a real human being who's pressing a button and sharing something with all the other human beings in their life. So you need to identify the real human action that you want to happen, and then you choose the right tool for the job. So before we start making anything, we need to think about what we want to achieve. And as I've said, each piece of content on social media functions in a slightly different way. So some are more able to achieve certain outcomes than others. Ideally, we're looking here for increased revenue, high engagement, follower growth. These are 3 outcomes that would be great for us on Museum Shop Sunday. And in terms of the metrics that come out the back end of your social media platforms, this is what you could be looking for. So that increased revenue, that will probably come through as sales and conversions. High engagement will probably come through as kind of comments and shares are the kinds of things that you're looking for. Saves are also great if that's on the platform that you're on. And then follower growth, so that's follows or signups if you're really pushing your email list. I haven't put likes in here because likes are great and they still boost your visibility in the algorithm, but they are kind of meaningless. Like it takes like a double tap or like one movement to do a like. It doesn't really prove that your content's engaging. High value engagements that come through on high value content that make your content really visible are comments, shares, and saves. So that's kind of what you're looking for in your overall campaign plan for Museum Shop Sunday. So yeah, we need to use content types that are really good at generating these metrics. So I'll show you now how to do that. So this is really broad across these 3 platforms. I've chosen these 3 because I think they're the most common across all of you attending. These are the different post types that are best at creating these outcomes. So you could look at this and think, okay, I want to make loads of sales, but I also want to grow my account. So I'm going to do loads of carousels and loads of videos. That's quite a good way to use this cheat sheet. Working within this cheat sheet is not a replacement for making great content, as I'm sure you already know, but it's a good way to focus your time and your mind on what you are going to make. So if you are, and all of this information, by the way, is based on statistics that I've got out of campaigns that I've run recently and from various social media reports. If you're really interested, like write something in the chat or kind of ask in the Q&A and I can share over some of the reports with you. I'm totally happy to do that. So how might you then apply this to your own campaign, to your own brand? Hold on. Right, so how might you then apply this to your own campaign and your own brand? Let's go through just some like quick tips and tricks, stats kind of things, because whilst they don't make for a great social strategy, it can be really useful to know them, and it can help you decide like which parts of this table you're going to focus on and which parts of them maybe like aren't for you. So firstly, if you are thinking about making video, 75% of all videos in the whole world are viewed on mobile devices. So you should make sure that your mobile device is optimized for, like your video is optimized for mobile devices. This usually means choosing like a square format or like a portrait format rather than a landscape format. As much as we tell ourselves that people will like turn their phones, I never do. And if you really ask yourself, how often do you? Maybe only really for YouTube videos. So if you're not operating in that space, it's best to choose a square or a portrait. 72% of users prefer learning about a product or a service from a video. So if you are selling something that's like a kit on how to do a certain thing, or perhaps like a science kit for children, it's a really good idea to put that into a video, especially if there are a lot of different facets. Especially if there are a lot of different facets to the product that you're showing. 72% of users prefer kind of learning about it in that way. Carousel slides on Instagram produce a higher engagement rates than single posts. Like, who knew? I found this out recently. They work the best if you mix up your stills and your video. I'm not sure why they produce higher engagement. I think because there's more information and it's more likely that people will save them. And a save is like the holy grail of Instagram engagement right now. If lots of people are saving your content, it means your content is really high value. It's got a really strong value exchange. And it means that you're really likely to be seen in the newsfeed. Some users only ever spend time in their Instagram stories, and I've said this for Instagram, but it counts for everything from like Facebook. LinkedIn has stories now. It's a really popular place to be, and I would recommend that every time you do a post on Instagram, share it into your story. I think you can do it on Facebook as well. And yeah, it's really important to keep your story up to date every single day. I know that can sound really onerous and like a really heavy task, but remember, it's an fun, informal space to be, so you don't have to put loads and loads of thought and time editing into it. It's just really important to be sharing value and to kind of be present there. Location tagging increases the likelihood that your content will be seen. This is true. I ran an experiment on this on a couple of accounts that I run, and I found that my reach increased by like 20% and my engagements went up by about 15% just when I started location tagging all of my content. If in particular you're a local interest site perhaps, or you are a local history museum, or you're kind of quite a small place, I would absolutely not tag necessarily your museum, but tag the town or the area that you're in. That can be kind of a nice way to do this, and mix it up sometimes as well. It increases the likelihood that your content will be seen by people who are in that area or interested in that area. So if you're looking for local supporters, or you're trying to drive footfall when museums open again, this is a great thing to do. And then, yeah, micro-influencers have the highest engagement rates on their posts. So if you have a local influencer who has between like 3,000 and 10,000 followers, they are absolutely worth getting in touch with. You might think that it's just the big influencers who have any influence, but actually people make more purchases from smaller accounts than they do from bigger ones. So particularly if you have local interest bloggers, for example, it's a really good idea to talk to them about Museum Shop Sunday. Maybe they'll kind of do some product features for you, or take over your Instagram story for a day. You never know. And Square Facebook videos get 35% more views than landscape ones. I think I covered this earlier, but it's just to really bring this home. Always film for Square. And that means that when you're filming like portrait on a phone, try and film like in this bit. And then it's more likely that when you start cropping your video and uploading in different places, if you're in the story working in portrait, or you're working in Square in the newsfeed, that the thing that you want to be in shot will be in shot. So that's just a little content tip for you. So how does this work out for our fictional museum? What are we going to post in the lead up to Museum Shop Sunday? Well, we are looking for sales, follows and signups, and comments and shares. Just a reminder, in the kind of overview I gave about this fictional museum, we didn't have a lot of staff, time, resource, budget. We don't have a lot of that. So I've kept that in mind when I've chosen these examples. And we have a Shopify, but we set it up really recently, and it's only got a few products on it. So the whole wealth of what we're offering in our shop is not currently online. So that's just something to keep in mind as I walk you through what I would do. So in terms of sales and conversions, so on Instagram, I'm going to do a carousel with 5 products to buy for the budding art restorer in your life. And then I do the same thing on Facebook because there's so much crossover between the 2 platforms. On Twitter, it's a slightly different place. I'd highlight the key products on sale in my shop at the moment. I might not present it in the same kind of way. To drive follows and signups, on Instagram, I'd do a quick 1 minute, because that's all you've got in the grid. I might even do this as an Instagram reel. I do a little time lapse of a piece of art being restored using products from the shop. So you're giving that value exchange. We are the art restoration experts. We know how to do this more better than anyone else. And you're using a really social media friendly format that we know drives follows to create this piece of really engaging content. But by the way, you can buy all of this stuff in our shop. That's a really good way to think about Museum Shop Sunday content. This is the extremely high value stuff that you can post in the lead up to the day that will really create that engaged audience, so that when it gets to the 29th of November, you're ready to like start making the most of the thing that you've built. On Facebook, you need to post a video that's over 3 minutes. So you would be demonstrating an art restoration technique, perhaps. Maybe it would be part of a series. And then on Twitter, I do that as like a top 10 failed art restorations. Twitter is a place to have conversations and have fun. unless you're a journalist, then don't do that. But post them in a thread, ask people to rank them using likes, and then once, because you're encouraging engagement, and then the most liked one, you could post that winner in like a standalone tweet and say it was voted the most liked, like failed art restoration. For comment shares, on Instagram, I do the top 10. Again, same content idea. So I'm saving myself a lot of time because I don't have to make the same, like lots of different pieces of content. I'd post one a day with commentary from our experts, because again, that's my value exchange about what went wrong. And then for Facebook, I'd do more of a kind of like meme conversational approach. So we're matching a failed art restoration to that moment when this happened. And then on Instagram, we're asking a question. So offering some expertise. So perhaps we do like an art news of the week run by a curator. It's really about making yourself available, about coming back to that value exchange, coming back to your mission, why you're on social media, and then giving that to people in a really compassionate and kind of wholehearted way. So I've put together a suggested post calendar. You do not have to follow this. Obviously, it is the 9th of November, but I've arranged this around those content pillars that we talked about before, just because I often find that that's a really good way to plan things out. When you've got a plan and you've got a schedule, content becomes less scary, more manageable. I would really recommend that you start using a content calendar if you're not using one already. And if you're not scheduling, definitely start scheduling. This will save you time and stress. But again, this is in the strategy. There's a couple of free options here that you can use. I'm sure lots of you use them already, but it will save you so much time. Right, so interacting with your audience. These last couple sections are going to be quite brief because, to be honest with you, there's not a huge amount that goes into them. Don't post and ghost. Nobody likes to be ghosted. So the algorithm chooses what to surface in the feed by how much engagement it gets in the first hour. This is why I've been talking so much about being there and comments and value. You can boost your own engagement by replying to comments you get or specifically inviting comments in your copy. So and you could probably start doing this today, sorry, but it will add to that extra layer of visibility you get on Museum Shop Sunday. So a good time balance for this is posting about 3 times a week, but maybe engaging in comments on your own accounts and for others for 10 minutes a day. You really don't need to be in the grid that often, I would suggest. So here's just a couple of examples. You'll receive these slides afterwards as well, so you can have a look at them and click through and see the rest of these feeds. But again, they're kind of on the left with the Royal Academy. They're actively asking people to talk to them, which is really helpful. And then on Leaf Age on the right, they're just replying to all of the different comments that they've got. And by the way, here's another 2 really good examples of value exchange. So the Royal Academy knows all about art. So they're talking to people about art because their opinion on your daily doodle matters, because their value is that they are experts in art. Leaf Age do really wonderful terrarium kits. I really like them. And they're kind of plant experts and experts in plant enthusiasm as well. So that's why you see a lot of that in the comments that they leave on other people. And also you can see that you don't have to really go to town on the comments and leave this massive thing. It just has to be authentic and from the heart. So number 3, crucially, use our hashtags. So by this point, we've reached this point where we're creating this really engaged audience through high value content. So we all want to be there together to give it this extra kind of push on the day. So please use Museum Shop Sunday on every post you create that day. And you can also use the Association for Cultural Enterprises hashtag sustaining culture. And then just to recap, like this is the strategy. So creating strategically minded, mission-led content, publishing regularly in the lead up to the event with all of that value content that you've made, everyone posting their amazing stuff on Museum Shop Sunday, continuing to provide value after the day using sustaining culture, and then gaining an insight what worked and what didn't to kind of integrate into your future content. I'm going to talk about that now. So keeping the momentum going, this is the last bit, I promise. So you built an audience. You created your high value content, you posted it for a couple of weeks in the lead up to the day. On the day, you used the hashtag, you were part of that giant conversation, and you're kind of in this point now where your engagement is quite high. You've gained some followers, you've made some sales, hopefully. And now it's time to double down on that work. So remember, Museum Shop Sunday is one day as a part of a wider social media strategy. So here's just a couple more suggested posts. I would absolutely just keep it going after that. make it kind of a regular slot. While you're not getting necessarily the income from sort of visitors coming in, although fingers crossed by this time the lockdown will be over and we totally will have that, it's a good idea to kind of keep that momentum going, especially as we get closer to Christmas. You want people to choose you instead of Amazon, essentially. Like Jeff Bezos has enough money, you know? So keep telling that story, because you've created an audience now of people who are interested in that story. And then just quickly at the end, this is what I call the growth cycle. And if you really want to build on the momentum that you created, this is how you do it. So if we start with plan, you plan your content, you publish it, you measure it. How did it do? Did it do well? What didn't do well? You then kind of like really analyze that. So you can get quite granular here. I once at the National Theatre, I banned any video that started with like any dark colors at the beginning to see, because I felt that they weren't doing very well. And when we stopped doing that in the next cycle of content, they all did much better than the first time we published them. So there's even little things like that that you can learn. So then you optimize and then you go back into planning and then publishing. So you should try and run this cycle once a month, I would recommend. So that's kind of it from me. I'm ready for your questions and to hopefully give you some answers. I hope you find that really useful. You can get in touch with me on like LinkedIn, and I think my email address is available on the slides as well if you have any questions after the session.
Okay, thanks Tara, that was really interesting. I learned a lot. I've been writing copious notes, although that won't be necessary because the slides will be available on the website at the end of the session. So we do have a question from Claire. What's more valuable on Instagram, IGTV or videos on the grid?
Oh, that is such a good question. I really think take it back to that like medium has to fit the message value exchange thing. If you go back to your value exchange, where can you best express value? Can you do it in under a minute because that's all you get in the grid? Or are you going to have to go to 3 minutes or 10 minutes even? That then means that you have to do an IGTV. What I will say is that you can share a preview of your IGTV video into the grid, and I would totally recommend that you do that. But if you're going to do that, make sure you've created a cover for your IGTV video. So when you're at that upload stage, you can choose to add like your own bespoke cover. So make one, and then center all of the text that you need to be there in like a square in the middle. And then when you pick the kind of grid snippet to go into the Instagram grid, you can just choose that square and it will look really good. So in that way, you've done them both. But really, it's about that kind of length question. I know they're boring and annoying sometimes, but I would really encourage you to have a look at Instagram Reels. They are doing really, really well. It's a great place for you to, it's because it's still quite new. Instagram wants people to see them. So if you're looking for reach and impressions really quickly, and probably to reach a slightly younger audience, have a go at doing an Instagram Reel. You can do them in 30 seconds now, and also just play around with it as a function. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, sorry. But yeah, so to come back to your question, it's really about like, what value are you trying to give? If you can do it in under a minute, put it on the grid. If you can't do it in under a minute, take it slightly longer. There's no point in putting a 1 minute and 5 second video on Instagram TV. Take it to like 2 minutes, put it in your Instagram TV, upload a nice cover photo, and then share it back into your grid, and then you've done both.
Great, thanks Tara. I've got a couple more questions. I do find sometimes that I'm running out of posts. There's only so often you can talk about the same thing, and that results in posting for posting's sake. How can you combat that? It's a hard one.
that is tough. I think firstly, like run the value exchange thing that we talked about. That can often like help. Another thing I do with clients when they feel that way is firstly remind them you can actually repost stuff. Don't do it all the time, but you can totally like share the same thing like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later. Nobody cares as much as we do. Unfortunately, so that's totally fine to do. If it's still legit content, that I would do that. Another great exercise, this is one of my favorite exercises to do when I'm kind of working with people, and for myself sometimes as well. Write down 100 things that you do, like that your institution does. You will absolutely find things in that list that you haven't made content about before, because a lot of the time, the things that seem really normal to us actually are kind of magical to people outside. And probably part of your value exchange is giving people access to that really magical, interesting niche world, because there are other people who are interested in that. So I would try and do that. So yeah, don't be afraid to recycle your content. Just maybe don't give it more than like 2 or 3 weeks between doing that. Go back to your value exchange, like what makes you really special, and do that 100 things exercise, because like you never know what you might kind of get out of it.
One more question from Francesca. What's your advice on what's the best time of the day to post on each social media channel?
Oh, my advice on the best time of day. So time of day advice varies wildly by audience and by platform, but here's how you can find out yours. So firstly, go into the insights of whatever platform it is that you're on. Every single platform in their native insights will offer this. It's usually kind of in your audience panel where it shows you like how many, like how people gender identify within your audience. And it'll show you what your best time of day is. So publish within that. As a rule, I tend to find that mornings are good and lunchtimes. And at the National Theatre, always 4:30 on a Thursday, because I think at 4:30 on Thursday, everyone had just sort of like, you begin to like give up inside, I think. So that always tends to be a good time. But again, think about your audience. So I know of a really well-known baby food brand that found that their best time was 2 or 3 in the morning, because that's when parents wake up. So it's really about looking at your insights and your data. Sometimes if you're not comfortable with looking at metrics, you can Google like with your industry, and some wonderful social media consultant who works just in your niche will have figured it out for you. But generally speaking, look into your metrics, think about your audience, think about what they do, even like broadly. So like school run time, when people are waiting for their kids, that was a really prime time to post for one of my audiences. And then like really late at night sometimes for people aiming at youth audiences, because they're like teenagers up late in their bedrooms. But yeah, bring it back to your audience and kind of see what the data says.
Great, thanks, Tara. So there's no more questions at the moment, so I think we're probably getting ready to, oh, hang on, I think we have got one more question just coming in from Owen. We're very new to social media at our museum and just developing Twitter and Facebook at the moment. Do you think an established large social media following is needed before you can make much of Museum Shop Sunday?
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, no. I think that whilst I'm not going to sit here and say you can have like 10 followers and get the same results as like the tape, because a lot of social media consultants will say that, and I think that's like not great advice. However, what I will say is that you're in an amazing position right now, my friend, because you have this whole strategy, and this is part of Museum Shop Sunday. It's about building towards that point. So this is a really good kind of foundational time. And in a sense, you're in a really good position, because when I go into work with brands, even really big ones, and I have to talk to them about their content and what's performing, they hadn't done this value exchange work right at the beginning. So we have to like unpick all of that, and that can take a really long time. So no, you don't have to have a massive audience size. You can actually have an audience size of between 100 to 1,000 to make really good sales on social media. In fact, there's a really good article that I'll send to Joanne, and you can send around to everybody, about the power of just having 1,000 followers, which when you're a brand, it's easier to get there than you think. So no, you don't need to have a massive following. I would say if you're on Twitter and Facebook, and that's kind of the platforms that you're on, think about whether or not those platforms are the right platforms for you at the moment. Twitter is, if you don't have a lot of staff, Twitter is a very hungry place, so you need to be there a lot. But yeah, you can always like email me and ask me for some advice. I'd be totally happy to help you.
I think that leads on to a really good point as well, that don't forget Museum Shop Sunday isn't just for Christmas, it's for life. I think now more than ever, especially as we're pretty much totally online with it this year, it's a campaign that we can keep going throughout the year. It isn't just about one day. It's about trying to raise the profile of cultural retail 365 days a year. And now, as we know, we all need that more than ever. So whatever the size of your social media following at the moment, you can use it as a platform to build and develop and hopefully apply all these strategies that Tara's talked about today throughout the year, really, to all your campaigns. So I think if there are, I think there might be one more question here. Oh, thanks, Owen. That's okay. So I think we're probably about ready to wrap up then. I hope you've all found it really useful. Tara, thanks so much. You've given us an awful lot to think about there. And that's been really practical advice as well. So if you've got any more questions for us, I think Tara's contact details are in the slides at the end. Otherwise, we can put you in touch with her through us. You can always email us at info@culturalenterprises.org.uk. As we've said, the slides and the webinar recording will both be on the website on the Museum Shop Sunday page, which I'll get those up by the end of today. So you feel free to look at those and share those. We'll put the other document that Tara mentioned just now on there as well. And I'll also share links to them in this Friday's e-newsletter as well, the bottom line. So do look out for that. Don't forget to use all the hashtags in your posts, the hashtag Museum Shop Sunday especially, and that way we can track everything that's going on. And we'll aim to share all your posts as well on the Museum Shop Sunday social channels. So I think, unless Tara, you've got anything else to add, I think all that remains, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say thanks for having me and for being here, and like feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or anything. I'll be around.
Great, thank you. Thanks again, and thanks to everyone for joining us, and especially for supporting Museum Shop Sunday. And we wish you all the very best of luck with all your campaigns. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.